Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to report that we have a quorum. There are 297 town meeting members, so the number for a quorum is 150. We have 172 members present at 9:06 a.m. Could you please, so I have one announcement. I'm trying to allow you all to spread out so you're not sitting right on top of one another. Typically, we just use this center section for town meeting members. What I would ask is that if you are a town meeting member, you sit in this center section or in this side, okay? If you are not a town meeting member, could you please sit in the row closest to that wall? It's to my left, to your right. So non-town meeting members over here, town meeting members in these two sections, because I want to try and give you as much room to spread out as possible. Thank you very much. I know it's a little bit of a change. With that, I would ask that you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Let us bow our heads in a moment of silence to honor the memory of our friends who have passed away since our last meeting. This morning, we honor the memory of former town meeting members, former town board and committee members, and all those who have served the town. Thank you. You may be seated. Good morning. I'm so happy to see all of you here. It's been a while since we have gotten to meet in person. So just for my own information, who here is today their first town meeting, in-person town meeting? Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Okay, welcome. I think you're gonna like this experience a lot better than we have on Zoom. And we're glad you're here. I want to thank you all for helping to keep the town running during this pandemic by doing the meetings virtually. I know it's not an optimal forum for us as a community to meet, but I think it was necessary. And I appreciate all the support that you gave and all the hard work that you did in connecting to Zoom so that we could keep moving. Okay, I just want to remind everyone there's no smoking on school grounds or in the school. Please turn off your cell phone or at least turn it to vibrate, okay? So this morning, for those of you who have not seen this in person and for those who just need a reminder because we haven't done it in a while, in terms of the motions, I will read the title of each article, then I will recognize the sponsor. The sponsor will summarize the warrant article before you. A motion will be made and seconded by town meeting members. Finance Committee and Select Board will be recognized to give their recommendations, and then I will open the floor to discussion. If you would like to speak, please raise your card. So y'all came in and got a card. Please raise your card. They're a little bit easier for me to see than your hand. I will recognize people generally in the order of those that have not spoken today, and then those that have not spoken on the article being debated. I ask that you please wait for the microphone. Every time you speak, please rise, give your name, and your precinct number. You need to do that every time you speak, please. You can ask one question, then give the microphone back. If you need a follow-up question, I will recognize you for the follow-up. There's no one-on-one debate here. All the questions are posed to me as the chair, and I'm gonna make my best effort to get you answers to your questions. Cross-examining is not allowed, so we do not cross-examine each other, nor do we cross-examine town officials or the sponsors of articles. Our goal is to get you the information you need to make good decisions. Only persons recognized by the moderator may speak, and you may not yield your time to someone else to speak. While we have no speaking limits, I ask that you be brief and not repetitious. If someone has already made a point you wish to make, please consider whether or not it truly needs to be made again. We are here to discuss issues and not other people. We refer to the issues and the positions or points of view. We avoid using names. We do not attack other people, nor do we attack their integrity. We are here to do the town's business. We may do it in different ways, but we're here to respect the differences. If you've heard enough debate today on an issue, you may raise your hand and be recognized and say, I call the question or I move the question. A 2/3 vote is required for passage. If it passes, passes, debate stops, and the question before town meeting will be put to a vote. This causes a whole lot of confusion. I get a lot of questions about this after town meeting. If someone moves the question and you as a body vote to approve that motion, you as a body are saying, we've heard enough and we just want to vote on the main motion. So those who are left, who I haven't gotten to, it's because the town meeting as a whole has decided they're ready to vote, okay? Amendments. All proposed amendments to the main motion must be in writing, so I must receive them in writing, and they must be legible. If you know you're going to amend something today, you're best served to just get it to me as early as possible. I've talked to you about seating. I'm asking town meeting members to sit in this center section or this side, and non-town meeting members to sit on my left, your right. Votes will be taken by a show of hands. I'll let you know if more than a majority is needed to pass an article. If you think I've made a mistake when I announce the vote, please stand immediately. If 7 people challenge me, there will be a teller count. A teller count cannot be questioned. When I call the next article, you may no longer challenge the vote. I have appointed, and the town clerk has sworn in, Kelly Thompson and Alder Raposa as the tellers for the duration of this meeting. Also assisting us today are the following individuals from DCTV: Peter Chase, Michael Manise, Daniel Medeiros, Chad Amaral, Jessica Gove, Todd Migliacci, Daniel Ferguson, and Andrew Reed. Dartmouth Community Television is again covering this town meeting live. I do want to point out that Peter Chase led the effort along with his team at DCTV and the IT professionals at Town Hall and at the school department, making it possible for us to meet virtually. I think they did a really outstanding job, and as a member of the Massachusetts Moderators Association, I can tell you that that experience was not had by all towns across the Commonwealth. So would you join me in just giving them a round of applause? Thank you very much for that. So we have 18 articles on our annual town warrant today, plus 4 on the special town meeting warrant, for a total of 22 articles. I fully expect that we will be able to complete voting on these articles today, and so we do not have a set-aside date at this point. Let me tell you my plan for the day. So my plan is that at noontime we will recess for lunch unless we are really close to completing our business, in which case I'm going to ask you to power through to completion. If we break for lunch, Article 9, Schedule A, is going to be the last article of the day. It will be taken out of order. I'm sorry, it will be right after lunch. Or if we power through, it will be the last article of the day. We'll take an hour break for lunch if we have to break, okay? The other thing that I want to point out to you, just so you have a sense of what is going on, Article 8, I have a conflict on because I am related to the town clerk and her salary is being voted as part of Article 8. The town clerk obviously has a conflict on that article too, so I will leave the stage and our town council, Anthony Savastano, will take over as moderator for that article. Please try to be nice to him. I am a town meeting member, so I am allowed to vote on the article, so I will come back in for the vote, but you'll see me leave the stage. And I just wanted you to understand what was going on there, okay? Okay. For the record, all appropriations voted during the annual town meeting are from the levy unless you read or hear otherwise. These are the ground rules for today, okay? I want next to introduce to you the people that are sitting up on stage with me. First, immediately to my left, your right, is Town Council Anthony Savastano, Town Clerk Sarah Haskell-Aruda, Director of Budget and Finance Gregory Barnes, and Town Administrator Sean McGinnis. Next, the Select Board, we have our Chairperson David Tattlebaum. Mr. Tattlebaum, I will let you introduce your team.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stan Mickelson, Vice Chair, Heidi Silver Brooks, Sean McDonald, and Frank Gracie is watching from home attentively.
Thank you. Finally, we have the 9 volunteers who serve on the Finance Committee and spend countless hours at budget meetings and with the various groups and stakeholders bringing articles before town meeting. They act as town meetings' eyes and ears and work hard to understand each article before you today so they can make a recommendation that they feel is in the town's best interest. And I will ask Teresa Ham, our chairperson, to introduce her team.
Good morning. To my left is Adam Silva. To my right is Bob Garvin, John Souza, Janine Simmons. We have several members who are unable to make it today. I'm just going to say their names for people's interest. Ruchi Chopra, Becky Wiedekoper, Brian O'Hare, and Bill Bowles.
Thank you very much. Before we begin, we need to take care of a few preliminary motions. For those, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony Savastano, our town council.
Moved that the meeting note the correct call of the warrant and the lawful posting and return of service thereon, and that the moderator is hereby relieved from reading each article in its entirety and is allowed to refer to them by title and number, and that any motion to amend Schedule A by increasing a line item must include a reduction of the same amount from another line item, and that the moderator is hereby allowed to take up any action on any of the several articles out of numerical sequence as she may determine. And finally, that a teller count need not be taken on motions requiring 2/3, 4/5, or 9/10 votes, and that the moderator may declare whether the motion passes or fails.
Do I have a motion for that? And a second? Okay. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes at 9:17 a.m. Here we go. Article 1. Article 1, Community Preservation Administrative Budget. Mr. Baker-Smith.
Thank you. Move that the meeting accept this article. This is, shall I provide a little explanation?
Please.
All right, there we go. So as part of the Community Preservation Act, each year the CPC is allowed to set aside up to 5% of projected revenues for administrative budget. Our administrative expenses typically are admin support, legal fees, Community Preservation Coalition dues, those sorts of things. We've set aside the $35,000, which represents about 3.5% of projected revenues. That's less than the 5% that we are allowed to, but that'll cover all of our expenses.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
Yes.
So Finance Committee recommends 7-0. Select Board recommendation.
5-0.
5-0. Thank you. Any discussion on Article 1? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 1 passes at 9:19 a.m. Article 2, Community Preservation Committee, Town Clerk, Historic Records Preservation. Mr.
Yes.
Baker-Smith.
Yes, and I move that the meeting accept this article. This is one of our project proposals that we received for this funding round, $25,000 to restore and preserve historic town records. Things like marriage certificates from 1700s, birth certificates, death. The activities will include some repairs and restoration of documents, repairing bindings and things like that, but also proper storage of materials so that they can be preserved better into the future.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
And the Select Board?
Are we out of sequence, Madam Moderator? This is from the main meeting?
Oh, did I read that?
Article 2? From the annual meeting? Am I in the wrong spot? Okay. Article 2, so I think it's the CPC, and I have the Select Board recommendation as 5-0.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 2? Yes. Have a question back there, please? Yes, please. The gentleman in the red shirt. Please, can you pass the mic down to him, please? Thank you. Thank you. I think it's probably on.
Test.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, so. the
Could you please
question-
give me your name and
Oh, yes,
precinct?
Jim Costa, Precinct 4.
Thank you.
Will the town residents have access to this information? Will it be posted on the website or something? Or can we research any of that information that you're going to be restoring or saving?
Great question. With the town clerk? Yeah, yes, please. Anthony, could you?
All of these records are currently public records, so you're more than welcome to come into the town clerk's office Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 without an appointment and view any of these records. Currently, they are not being digitized, but that would be a project that we would be working on for the future. But anybody is welcome to come see these as long as they're not out being restored.
Okay, any further discussion on Article 2? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 2 passes at 9:22 a.m. Article 3, Community Preservation Committee, Fiscal Year 2023, Open Space, Community Housing, and Historic Preservation Reserve. Mr. Baker-Smith.
Yes, going to move that the meeting accept this article. This is a housekeeping item as required by the CPA. Each year, we are obligated to either set aside in reserves or commit to projects 10% of projected revenues. The projected revenues for fiscal '23 are approximately $1 million. And so we have proposed here to set aside $100,000 for the housing reserve, $100,000 for open space reserve, and $75,000 for historic preservation. And the reason why the historic preservation is less is that was assuming that we would approve the $25,000 project commitment.
Thank you. Do I have a second for Article 3? Thank you for the second. Finance Committee recommendation?
Recommend 7-0.
Select Board recommendation?
Select Board, recommendation 5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 3? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 3 passes at 9:23. Article 4, appropriation from the cemetery sale of lot fund. Mr. Barnes.
Legally, to access these monies, it requires a town meeting vote. This is a relatively small sum of $2,000 to address certain small needs at the cemetery. The amount in the fund is currently $59,712.
Thank you. Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving this?
Move that the meeting accept this article.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation
Recommend 7-0.
and Select Board recommendation.
5-0.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on Article 4? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 4 passes at 9:24. Article 5, establish fiscal year 2023 maxi muni spending budget for revolving funds. Mr. Barnes.
Every year we do this article, what it
Oh,
does
it's
is
maximum.
it's
Sorry, maximum spending, sorry. I misread it. Maxi muni, yeah. I'm an idiot.
I've lost my
I'm sorry, Greg. I'm sorry, Mr. Barnes, maximum spending budget for revolving funds, got it now.
Every year we do this article, it sets the maximum amount, it sets the maximum amount that can be spent out of these accounts. It does not mean that that amount will be spent, it only allows that amount to be spent. There are 3 revolving funds. The first one's cemetery revolving fund, the second one is the recreation and park revolving fund, and the last one is the library revolving fund for loss damage items. The current balances within those funds are $91,153 for the Rec and Park Fund, $52,516 for the Cemetery Fund, and $15,741 for the Library Fund.
Thank you. Mr. Tattlebaum, you're moving that?
Move that the
And do I have a
meeting
second?
approve the article.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation
Recommends 7-0.
and Select Board.
5-0.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on Article 5, now that we've straightened out what it is? Okay, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please indicate by raising your hand. Article 5 passes at 9:26. Article 6, acceptance of Capital Planning Committee report and funding of the fiscal year 2023 capital plan. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, this is the omnibus capital article. It is the recommendations of the capital planning committee for the spring. This is what is to be voted at town meeting. The capital planning committee also made some recommendations as to how to use the American Rescue Plan Act monies, but those do not get voted at town meeting. For those who are interested in the recommendations, it's in the handout that you all have regarding the capital report. So you can see those recommendations, but again, they're not voted. For town meeting, a total of $3,397,022 is being recommended for capital requests. $434,871 is coming from the tax levy, $1,852,567 from surplus revenue, $3,667 from sewer enterprise retained earnings, $533,667 from water enterprise retained earnings, $390,500 from solid waste retained earnings, and $6,750 from waterways management enterprise retained earnings. The thing to stress here is that the majority of these monies are going toward the highway to allow for improvements. This is reconstruction of 5 roads: Ashley Street, Bolton Street, Buttonwood Road, St. John, and Walt Street. And reconstruction includes redoing the drainage as well as curbs and sidewalks. So those roads, which are some of our oldest roads in town, will be addressed in the next year. There are additional monies for solid waste, water, so on, to make sure that the capital stays up to date. And that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving this?
Move that the meeting approve this article.
And do I have a second? Okay, so what I'm going to do, like I do with many of the budget items, is I am going to read through the list of expenditures that are proposed. And I do want to highlight there, you got a report from the Capital Planning Committee as part of your packet that I'm sure all of you read. They put together a lot of information in there for you. So I'm going to read through. If you have a question about any item on the schedule related to Article 6, please call hold, and I will go back and we will clear the holds and get your questions answered, okay? So let's start. Total for town government, $15,400, I'm just gonna do the totals, $15,400. Total for police department, $234,871. Total for Dartmouth Public Schools, $200,000. Total for DPW Engineering Division, $11,001. Total for DPW Highway Division, $1,809,500. Total for DPW Sewer Enterprise Fund, $175,000. Total for DPW Water Enterprise Fund, $530,000. Hold. Total DPW Waste Enterprise Fund, $390,500. Parks and Recreation total, $24,000. Hold. Waterways Management Enterprise Fund total, $6,750. Okay, let's go back and clear the holds. Who had a hold on DPW Water Enterprise Fund? Could you please get a microphone to the person in the back there? I think it's Mrs. Bancroft.
Gloria Bancroft, Precinct 1. I'm glad to see that we're going to have a comprehensive evaluation of the water treatment. Could we just have a brief update as to the situation with the water?
Sure, who do we have here who's able to speak with? Thank you.
Good morning, Tim Barber, Interim Director of Public Works. We currently are in discussion with our consultants, working on a full evaluation of the water system, including upgrades and removal of organics to help with the sampling. We recently received our results from the last quarter of sampling, and all of our levels are well below any of the limits set by the EPA, which brought our 4-quarter rolling average down also below the limits. So there will be no public notification. So it's a positive thing. Our transition from chlorine over to chloramines has been about 1.5 years in the works, and it's finally we have things balanced out. So our system seems to be running a lot better, but we will also continue our evaluation since the demands and the flows of water for today's use is a lot different than it was, 30, 40, 50 years ago. We have to look at some upgrades to meet today's demands.
Thank you. Any other hold on this portion of the article? Okay, moving on to the hold on Parks and Recreation. Who had that hold, please? Could you please get a microphone to this gentleman?
Dave Freitas, Precinct 8. I was just wondering what these eye scanners are.
I had the same question pre-town meeting, so let me get you an answer to that. Does someone want to describe them for me? Mr. Lancaster?
Good morning, Tim Lancaster, Superintendent of Parks, Director of Recreation. So these devices are new technology. They're a new tool for the toolbox for water rescue at waterfront beaches. As many of you may or may not know at this point, ever since the pandemic started, our ability to obtain adequate lifeguard levels has dwindled dramatically. It's very difficult. It's a very competitive business. The state of Massachusetts has a big pocketbook. They can pay lots and lots of money to obtain and basically grab lifeguards from every community in the Commonwealth. We have done our best, and we accommodate our guards by trying to raise our rates. You folks have been great in trying to keep our rates competitive. Every time we raise our rates, the state raises their rates right on top of ours. So we are constantly playing catch up. Due to the pandemic, there is, as I mentioned, there is a shortage of lifeguards. Some of that had to do with the fact that classes for lifeguarding stopped during the pandemic, and we got some catch-up going on. On top of that, this technology, I've been doing this for 23 years now, and we do the best we can in training our college and high school kids in water rescue. We do multi-agency drills with the fire department and stat ambulance every year down at Round Hill to try to put these kids through real-life scenarios because we know what real-life scenarios are. We've had water rescues at Round Hill Beach in my tenure here. We've had water rescues at Jones Beach in my tenure here. They were successful rescues. We have not had a drowning in my tenure here, and I hope that stays that way. This is a tool that has been developed. It's in heavy use on the West Coast. It's being used now also down in the Carolinas. It is a handheld device that basically is somewhat of an underwater sonar device where one lifeguard can go out and do the job of 5 lifeguards. If any of you are familiar with the technique that lifeguards use to basically a chain, somewhat body chain, where they dive, swim, surface, dive, swim, surface, that's how they try to locate an underwater victim. It's the best that the world has right now to do that until this device arrived. That is extremely inefficient. When you think of a beach like Round Hill, for example, and you have 5 lifeguards lined up, or in our case, we might not have 5 lifeguards because we don't have a full staff this year, and you have 5 lifeguards at a beach the size of Round Hill, and they're diving and standing, and diving and standing, while the current is potentially moving that victim 200 feet away from them, and they don't even know. So this device is simply what I call, it's not the perfect solution. There is no perfect solution. It's a tool for the toolbox. So they can hold this device, waste water, underwater, and slowly scan, and it will pick up every object in the water. It can scan 168 feet out, and it can scan a depth of 18 feet, which we wouldn't need to scan that deep, but it has that ability. So in theory, that whole diving and bobbing of 5 lifeguards, this device can assist them in basically locating any object on the water within seconds. So it's our hope that this will assist us in combating the fact that we have a limited lifeguard staff, and we do have a very limited lifeguard staff. Will it solve all our problems? Will it work every time? I don't know. There is no way to tell that. It's just a simply new technology that will assist us. This will place 1 device at every beach in the town of Dartmouth, and it will give 1 spare as a backup if one has to come out of service.
Do you have a follow-up question? Yes, right here. Mr. Lancaster, don't maybe not go for, 1 second. Could I get you the microphone, please?
Robert Michaud, Precinct 2. The list that was put up by Greg said that we didn't have a chance to vote on it, which is $4 million worth of monies that came from American Rescue. One of the items is Community Center in Design and Engineering, which is going to be $1.2 million. Now, if that's just the cost for engineering, that kind of reflects a building complex that would be $10 million, roughly, probably. I think that not having the town be able to have an opinion as to how important is it to have a pickleball court and all of these different things that are, entertaining, when we really need to take some of this money and we should put it on what the town says, oh, we need to have a new stadium for the football field.
So
Well,
let
maybe
me-
some
let-
of this money could go there.
Let me get you an answer to the question. So, Mr. Barnes, do you have some insight that you can provide us?
Well, perhaps Sean can answer this.
Sure, Mr. McGinnis.
So the ARPA funding, the requirement of the ARPA funding is for select board approval. The select board is planning on reviewing the ARPA funding requests in the near future, probably in June or July, and to garner input from the public on our proposed ARPA funding for FY23. So until then, that's not part of this capital plan, that's not part of town meeting, but the select board will be garnering input on how the ARPA funding is distributed.
Thank you. Okay, back on Article 6. It seems that we've cleared the holds on Article 6. Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 6 passes at 9:39. Article 7, purchase of property at 245 Russell's Mills Road. I just want to highlight that this is going to require a 2/3 vote for Article 7. And you received a map in your packet related to this article to help you visualize the property about which Mr. McGinnis is going to talk. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McGinnis, please.
Yes, this article would allow for the purchase of a 1.06 acre parcel at 245 Russell's Mills Road. As you can see in the packet, it ties in, the parcel runs diagonal behind DCTV and runs into the former police station site. It would allow the town to combine the 2 parcels, which would link to the park department parcels in the back and the recreation area further beyond that. So regardless of what is done with that property, this is a very a nice parcel to purchase for the town, just to tie in the whole area together. And it's proposed to use ARPA funding. The select board would still have to approve the use of that funding, but this is to approve the purchase of the parcel itself.
Thank you. Mr. Tattlebaum, you're moving this for us?
Move that the meeting approve the article.
And do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation
Recommended 5-0.
and Select Board recommendation.
5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 7? Yes, on the aisle, please. Could we get a microphone to Ms. Guiducci? Right here on the aisle, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Lund, Precinct 8, also Chairman of the Historical Commission. I just would like to point out to all of you that there is an historic house on that property. And I hope that as we consider how we use this, I think it's a fine idea to add this parcel to our property, but I think we need to think about the historic house on the property, and also just remind you all that before anything happens to that house, the Historical Commission has a view to look at it because it is over 75 years old.
Thank you, Mrs. Lund. The gentleman there in the middle towards the back. Could you raise your hand again? Because they need to get to you with the microphones. This young lady off to your other side. Thank you.
Yeah, George Markop, Precinct 2. You have no idea what you'd like to do with just nice to have? I would sort of like a little bit of maybe some foresight as to what you were planning on doing. There's lots of land in town. I guess it'd be nice to just purchase, but there's got to be something that you're thinking about?
So there's a number of things currently where the town is preparing bid specifications for the demolition of the old police station. So that would clear the lot completely. One of the proposals, not to talk about the ARPA funding, but a recreation center was a location for that. It's also a location for some other recreation facilities. There's been plans in the place previously behind this lot for a park to create some field space. So this lot could be used for recreation space associated with that or parking. So there's a number of uses that could be used, from green space to parking to recreation facilities to buildings. So it's got a lot of uses.
Anything else on Article 7? The gentleman on the aisle here.
Peter Howland, Precinct 1. So I guess my question is there going to be like a time stipulation for, if we decide to purchase this land and then we demolish the police station, we're not going to combine those lots and then try to sell that off to a private person 2-3 years from now, right?
No, I can tell you from the town's perspective, there's not a lot of town-owned land that has potential for development, so that I don't imagine the town would be looking to sell any lots.
Anything else? In the middle there?
Michael Matos, Precinct 2. I just had a question about the 290, the valuation, how that was determined.
Sure.
That was determined by a professional real estate estimator. They valued that was the associated value of the property. It's actually since gone up. We came to this agreement 6 to 9 months ago.
Andrea Langhauser, Precinct 7. Is it, given the key location and multiple uses, is it possible that the Select Board might consider a master plan for the use of these parcels that could be publicly reviewed before they vote?
That's possible. The town is currently in the process of finalizing the master plan as well as the open space and recreation plan. So those should be done this summer before any development on the property would commence.
So 1 second, you need to be recognized again. Could you get her the microphone, please? You have a follow-up question?
Sorry to use the term master plan. I was referring to a specific review of the potential uses of this site.
So that's not something we can do right in the moment. So the alternative is to vote to oppose the purchase, I guess. Could I also ask, just remind town meeting members that if you're in this row, I'm not counting your vote, and I'm probably not going to recognize you because I'm not really looking there. So middle or that space, please. So I don't think we have room for any more kind of speculation about the planning. I think that what we're hearing is that it's not decided, and that's not something we're going to decide today. Okay. Anything else on Article 7? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 7, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 7 passes at 9:45. Article 8. Article 8 are salaries and stipends of elected officials. I'm turning this over to Mr. Savastano. Right here. Sean McGinnis.
Okay.
And Dave Tattlebaum will move it. So I've got, if that helps you, here. Do this. Hold your place there if you need that.
Okay, thank
You've
you.
got your thing.
I feel tall up here. Article 8, do we have a motion? Mr. Tattlebaum?
Move that the meeting accept the article.
Is there a second? Second. Mr. McGinnis, recognize you on this article.
Yes, this adjusts the salary of elected officials and salaries and stipends. There are no stipends for elected officials. This adjusts the town clerk's salary to be consistent with the town's reclassification and compensation plan. Previously, when the plan was done in 2019, the clerk's position was not included as part of that study. This is now included as part of the reclassification and compensation plan in town. It is consistent with other department heads on the grade. It's also comparable to, similar to our comparable communities, but less. It's less than the 50th percentile of our comparable communities, which is how we evaluate our reclassification and compensation plan. So it is below average, but it is consistent with other department heads in town.
Mr. Tattlebaum, what is the Select Board recommendation?
5-0.
And the FinCom recommendation?
7-0.
I'm going to just read each one, and if there are any holds, please state hold. Town Clerk, $91,709. Board of Assessors, 0. Board of Health, 0. Board of Library Trustees, 0. Parks and Recreation Board, 0. Select Board, 0. Planning Board, 0. School Committee, 0. Town Moderator, 0. Is there any discussion on this article? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Article passes. Time is 9:48.
Thank you, Mr. Savastano. Article 9. We're going to pass on Article 9. We're going to come back to that. Article 10, funding sewer and septic system betterments. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, the town has a number of sewer and septic betterments. These are items that are taxed where the residents who benefit from these betterments pay on their tax bills if they have not already paid it off in a lump sum. In order to spend the money toward these, the debt service, we have to vote it. And so there's $1,049,031.19 for the sewer betterment debt service and $43,053 for the septic system betterment debt service.
Thank you. Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving?
Move that the meeting accept this article.
And do we have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation, please.
You recommend 7-0?
And Select Board.
5-0.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on Article 10? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 10, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 10 passes at 9:50. Article 11, funding solid waste enterprise fund. And I believe that's you again, Mr. Barnes. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, this article funds the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund in the amount of $1,769,534. That is an increase of $38,344 from the year before, or 2.21%.
Thank you. Mr. Tattlebaum.
Move that the meeting accept this article.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation?
Recommend 6-0.
And Select Board recommendation, please.
5-0.
Okay, I'm going to, again, on this one, go through, and if you have any holds, please call them out. I'm just going to do them in bigger subtotals. So subtotal direct expenses, $1,407,738. Subtotal indirect expenses, $361,796, for a total of $1,769,534. Estimated sewer revenues totaling the same. Any further discussion on Article 11? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 11 passes at 9:51. Article 12, funding Water Department Enterprise Fund. Greg Barnes.
This will fund the Water Enterprise Fund in the amount of $5,383,985. That is a $570,703 increase from the year before, and that comes out to 11.86% increase. The major reason for the increase is in debt service. We had some short-term debt that went long-term. In short-term, you do not pay principal. In long-term, you do.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Mr. Tattlebaum.
Move that the meeting accept this article.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
We recommend 6-0.
Select Board recommendation.
5-0.
Any questions on Article 12? In the back there, the gentleman who had his hand up.
Jim Costa, Precinct 4. I just wondered, why did the debt go from short-term to long-term?
By law, we have a limited time frame in which we can do short-term debt. We can't continue to do that more than, I believe it's 5 years. Additionally, by going long-term, you lock in a interest rate. When you're short-term, it depends on the period of time for which you borrow. So typically, unless it's a small amount, we will go long-term for debt. And this was, we went out to market in February, got given the market very good rates.
Any further, the gentleman here with the hand up, please.
Yes, Chris Fletcher, Precinct 5. Just a quick question, I'm not sure when to ask this. How is the town doing in overall water supply? I see a lot of developments going on around Dartmouth. I don't know how local water reserves are. Are we fixed for the future? Is this taking future demand into account?
Okay, so it's a little bit off topic, but I will give leave to get that question from Mr. Barber.
There is a lot of development going on, but a lot of it is also outside of our water distribution system, so they'll be on private wells. We do have enough capacity in our system to provide the water, and we also have redundancy, which we purchase water from the city of New Bedford. Most of the time, our highest demand is during the summer season, which we purchase a lot more water. But recently, we've been purchasing water since a large amount of water from the city of New Bedford since October of '21. So.
Thank you. Any other questions on Article 12? In the back there, please. In the back and then over here, okay?
Hello, my name is Jeannie Tripp, Precinct 7. I have a question. Why are we purchasing water from New Bedford at all?
Okay, so I opened up a whole can of worms, huh? I'm gonna try and rein this in because it's a little bit off topic, but Mr. Barber, if you can give us a pretty quick answer. And then I'm gonna force us back onto Article 12.
This is also going to come up in the special town meeting for one of the topics. But we always purchase water during drier times, during the summer, when river levels are lower, when we can't pump as much water from our town wells. We purchase water from the city of New Bedford. During the EPA also restricts the amount of water that we can pump throughout the entire town. So, you know, in order to not exceed that limit, we will purchase water as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna take any questions on Article 12. If we have anything that's off topic, I'm gonna ask you to hold it, okay? So anything else on Article 12? Gentleman right here, please.
Win Willard, Precinct 9. Can you briefly explain the solar net metering credits? It appears to be an expense. I don't understand.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes, I can do that. So the town has 2 power purchase agreements with solar farms, and what it does is it purchases the credits from those solar farms, and then it sells those credits to Eversource. The town makes a significant amount of money from the sale of those credits, about $500,000 to $600,000 total. This is just one department that benefits from that. We look at the usage of that department, and we allocate the amount to the department based on the usage. So this money that you see here is being paid for those credits, but we're getting more money in return, which directly benefits the Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Anything else on Article 12? Gentleman over here, please. 1 second, I need to get you a microphone, Mr. Medeiros.
The Water Enterprise Fund, sorry.
Ralph Medeiros, Precinct 9. On town overhead, what's included in that? Because it dropped rather considerably on the 2023 recommended budget.
I think it went up, didn't it? I think that wasn't.
The town, I don't see it dropping. It goes from $647,964 to $690,000. But the town overhead is mainly health care, pension, Medicare, workers' comp, any charge related to employees that is incurred by the general fund. We will then charge it off to the enterprise if it involves the employee of that enterprise fund. Additionally, there are administrative costs related to work, say I do, that are charged off. But the biggest amount is based on, again, the fact that we pay for in the general fund the pension, the health care, the Medicare, workers' comp, and a few other items, and then we charge the enterprise for that in terms of being reimbursed.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 12, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 12 passes at 9:59. You're hearing me hesitate because we're supposed to open the special town meeting at 10 o'clock, and I'm just waiting for this thing to flip to 10 o'clock so we can go ahead and open the special. I would entertain a motion to adjourn our annual town meeting and open our special. Do I hear a so moved by anyone? Help me out. So moved? So moved. Thank you. Do I have a second? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. So we are, we are opening, the motion to adjourn our annual and go to our special has passed at 10 o'clock. We are opening our special town meeting at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to ask you to go to the special town meeting warrant. So it's a separate packet, separate warrant. In your packet, it has 4 articles in it. I'm going to go to mine as well. Special Town Meeting Article 1, Community Preservation Committee, Fiscal Year 2022, Community Housing and Historic Preservation Reserve, Mr. Baker Smith.
Thank you. As I had mentioned earlier in town meeting, there's a requirement to set aside 10% of projected revenue for either project or for reserves. Our revenue projections and state match are based on, in part, on the Department of Revenue, which produces kind of their projection of a state match. And we usually get that in September or October, and that's what we kind of base our annual revenue projections on. The legislature also has the option to commit an additional $10 million in surplus state funds to the CPA at their discretion. And that usually comes later after all the accounts are settled with the previous year budget. And so the legislature voted in additional money in January of this year, and that resulted in the state match increasing from 39.4% to 43.8%. So that pushed our projected FY22 revenues north. That's a good direction. But we had to make an adjustment then to raise our reserves up to 110,000. And so our commitments to projects regarding what we had previously were accounted for this, and so this is an additional $15,000 in those 2 reserves.
Thank you. So I have
So
a
I
motion.
move that the meeting approve this article.
I have a motion from Mr. Baker Smith. Do I have a second? Second. Finance Committee recommendation.
We recommend 5-0.
Select Board recommendation.
5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Special Town Meeting Article 1? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The article passes at 10:03 p.m. a.m. Yeah, 10:03. It seems like it's a long time, right? 10:03 a.m. Special Town Meeting Article 2, Supplement to the Fiscal Year 2022 Operating Budget of the Water Enterprise Fund. Mr. Barber.
Okay, so this will be related to the last question. So as I said earlier, typically we carry a budget in our operating budget to purchase water from the city of New Bedford. Since the Violetta wells are under reconstruction, and in combination with a few of the Pinelli wells had a bacteria count back in from October 21 when we had a storm and we had flooding in the well. The 579 Owestport Road treatment facility has been offline ever since then, so we've been purchasing a lot more water than we budgeted for. So we're asking to appropriate the $721,000 from the Water Enterprise Fund, retained earnings for the purpose of supplementing the budget. We have plans to complete the construction of the Violetta wells in the real near future, which will also bring online a couple of the Pinelli wells, and we'll be able to bring back the treatment facility back online and reduce the amount of water that we're purchasing from the city.
Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving this for us?
Move that the article.
And do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
5-0.
Okay, Select Board recommendation, I'm sorry.
5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on special town meeting Article 2? In front of here, please.
Good morning, Courtney Cohen, Precinct 8. Just to real quick say thank you for having me. I no longer work for the town of Dartmouth. I know a year ago some people felt that maybe my opinion was swayed as I was a former employee. So I just want to clarify that I am no longer an employer here in town. All good things, nothing negative, just change. But in regards to the water, I know right now we're in a mild drought. Should we look into watching the weather and the water usage with that? Knowing that, sometimes we put signs around, please reduce irrigation. I'm a walker early morning and I see, people's sprinklers on at 5 a.m. and the ground is soaked. And, I see it at companies and businesses, just something to recommend to reduce water usage in general during droughts. I know it seems funny we might be in a drought, but we are by USGS right now.
Thank you. So Mr. Barber, do we ever have a water ban?
We are in a current water ban, so it restricts water use from the allowed use is before 9 a.m. and after 6 p.m. So if you see it at 5 a.m., it's an allowed use after that, and in the afternoon during the warmer times, the ban is in effect.
Thank you. I've got some questions back there. So the gentleman in yellow first, and then next to him, please.
George Marcotte, Precinct 2. So when the original question was asked about purchasing from New Bedford, extra water, government regulations about pumping was one of the answers that you had said. Now it seems to be a well issue. So I'm a little confused. Do we have more of a well issue, or do we have more of regulations that we can't pump? Because it doesn't seem like we can pump anyway because of the bacteria and everything. So if you could just clarify that.
So typically, throughout operations, we always carry a budget for purchasing water through the city of New Bedford due to the restrictions by the EPA, and also during drought times, due to river level drops. Once they drop past a certain point, we have to restrict our water pumping. So that's our typical operation. And due to reconstruction of wells and some bacteria issues from the storm in October of 21, we've been required to purchase more water through the city to supplement the demand.
So Mr. Barber, what I think I'm hearing you say is it's all those things that have come together. It's both the low levels of water and EP regulations, it's the issues that we had with bacteria in the water, and the work that we're doing to get the wells up and running. Is that a fair?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. The gentleman in red over there, and then next to him, please.
Jim Costa, Precinct 4. Yeah, this buying water from New Bedford is long overdue. The city of New Bedford has their water supply consisting of 5 ponds, Assawamsett, Hickory, Quittis, Long Pond, Pockesaw, and Little Quitticus, and in comparison with, surrounded by almost 13,000 acres of protected land. In comparison, Dartmouth uses the wells located along the Pascamasket River, which is kind of a dumping point for all the road salts and chemicals and parking lots, and that all ends up in the Pascamasket. The other wells are located around an area that is contaminated off the ledge there, and so we should have been pulling out water from New Bedford long ago. Go into the state website. If you go look back through 2013, yeah, it was the first contamination of the TTHMs. That goes back to 2013. We had 86.43. Then you have other contaminants that are in the water, unregulated contaminants. Sodium levels have been extremely high, especially along the Pascamasket River. wells. And you also have perchlorate contaminants, and you have all these other unregulated contaminants in the water. The city of New Bedford water, it seems to be much purer. The state requirements for drinking water are the basic standard and minimum. They're not the pinnacle of water. We could always have better drinking water than what the state requires, but we end up with what we have for the town drinking water. But yeah, so I think purchasing water from New Bedford is a good deal.
Thank you very much. And you may pass it to the person right next to you, if she can. Sure, Mr. Barber, I'm sorry.
Just to let you know, the well behind the ledge that you stated was behind the contaminated area is not online.
Thank you. And yes.
Hi, Jean Tripp, Precinct 7. My issue is that we've been getting the reports based on our water supply. And I know I got them in my mailbox. As a kid, we used to drink from the brook that ran by my house. It never bothered anybody. My problem is that if we're sending out the warnings to the residents in town about our own water supply, shouldn't we have more information about the contaminants in New Bedford's as well?
So, Mr. Barber, did I hear you say earlier that it's based on a rolling period of time and as to whether or not you need to share that information?
Yeah, we do test the entire system, so we don't only test the water that we pump out of our wells. We test throughout the distribution system, and we do test the water coming in from New Bedford.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Anything else on Special Town Meeting Article 2? The gentleman over there? One moment, let me get you a microphone, please.
Robert Almy, Precinct 9. Mr. Barber, could you quickly describe the difference in cost between the water that's produced from the town system and New Bedford system? Roughly 2 times, 3 times the cost?
To $8,000 per million gallons per day, roughly compared to 800 per million gallons per day for our own production.
Thank you. The gentleman in the back.
I understand.
I'm
that
going to
the-
need your name and
Oh,
precinct
sorry.
again, please.
Jim Costa, Precinct 4. Yeah, years ago, I remember reading in the town minutes that the town has an agreement with the city of New Bedford when they purchase water, that whatever they purchase the water at, it will never be less than what the town, they will never be able to charge less than what the city residents of New Bedford are paying. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if it'll never be less than the city residents are paying, but it's a high cost.
No, but it was an agreement, I guess, between the city and the town. I just didn't know if that was still in effect.
Not familiar with
Not
that
familiar.
agreement.
No.
Okay.
But the city has proposed increases for the next 5 years in their water system. So that will be forced on us as well.
Okay. Down front here, and then I'll take a question in the back. Right here on the aisle, please. It's coming to you with the microphone.
Diane Camacho, Precinct 1. You mentioned some of the wells are under construction. Do you have a time frame on when completion and actual running of them would be?
Right now, we're delayed by Eversource Electric, but we were planning on sometime in June coming online. But so I don't know if we're looking at hopefully July.
And on the aisle there, please. Yes, please. Could you bring, yep, if you head back towards the back of the gentleman on the aisle. Thank you. I see you in the back there. I'll get to you in 1 second, please.
Peter Howland, Precinct 1. So I guess, we talked about the restrictions that the EPA is putting on us. With our wells that are down, have we hit our 100% that we can pump? I guess what I'm wondering is $800 versus $8,000. Are we not pumping our 100% before we're buying?
We are pumping, and along with the drought conditions, we have to limit our pumping as well. And some of our wells, along with the combination of the Violetta wells being down and the Pinelli wells being down, we have to purchase what we're purchasing.
A follow-up question?
That doesn't really answer my question. My question is that we pumped 100% of what the EPA has allowed us before purchasing.
In the individual well areas, we have, yes.
Okay, I had a question in the back first, please. Yep, in the back, probably 2 or 3 rows in the back in the center. Yep. Thank you.
I'm just interested in
Your
finding...
name and precinct,
Yeah,
please?
my name is David Costa. I'm from Precinct 5.
Thank you.
I'm just interested in finding out if there's any possibility of any long-term solutions like reservoirs. I know years ago I had heard something about Fall River purchasing any water that sees the air in Dartmouth or something like that, and I didn't know if there was any long-term solutions like Copacut enlarged or anything like that that might resolve some of the well issues. We have a lot of water in the area, but it's not being maybe put into a reservoir that might assist us in this kind of issue.
Okay, let's see if we can get you an answer to that. Mr. Barber.
We haven't looked into a reservoir. It takes a large body of water, and so we continuously look for well areas in the aquifer that we can pump out of.
Okay, do I have another question? The gentleman here?
Yes, Kevin Murphy, Precinct 8. This amount is to cover the shortfall. How much was actually budgeted for the purchase of water from New Bedford?
Excuse me. So we had budgeted $650,000 for the purchase of water.
And the year prior, do you happen to have that number?
The year prior, $606,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Special town meeting, Article 2. Would you like to ask a question? Are we ready to vote? Do you want to ask a question? I'm sorry, Mr. Yenna. Are you ready to vote? No, Mr. Yenna. Do you have a question? Okay. Could you bring this gentleman the mic? Mr. Yenna.
Hi, Tom Yenna, Precinct 1. I think New Bedford's got their water supply in Dartmouth. There's a reservoir on Points Corner Road. So we need some water for Dartmouth. It's sitting in Dartmouth. It's got to go through New Bedford and come back to Dartmouth. So if they're charging us, why don't we charge them for supplying water in Dartmouth? Dartmouth supplies water for everybody. We got fresh water here. Every time we need some, they want money for it. Is there any answer that we can get better water systems in our community? Maybe you can explain some of that. Thank you.
Other than them owning the reservoir and the rights to it, we have to purchase from it.
Right, so I think Mr. Barber is highlighting that New Bedford owns that reservoir and the rights to the water there, and that the DPW is continuing to look for sources of water within our own town boundaries with well development. Okay. Yes. Gentleman in the back.
Peter Howland, Precinct 1. I just want to throw out for recommendations that there is, Fall River is in the process of trying to get us to purchase one of their current reservoirs before they actually breach that dam. Maybe that's something as a town we should look into a little bit more on an assertive manner.
It's actually not a reservoir. It's a river in a lake, but it's not considered a reservoir.
Okay, thank you. Special town meeting Article 2, are we ready to vote? All right, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Special town meeting, Article 2 passes at 10:20. Special town meeting, Article 3, appropriations for previously approved capital projects. Mr. Barnes.
This is a housekeeping article. The town borrows through the Mass Clean Water Trust in order to get debt service monies. We have to apply for them. The DPW, through engineers, submits an application for some older capital projects. There were certain monies for which a application has yet to be submitted. It's easier just to take available funds and pay off the amount than it is to go through the process of borrowing. There's a long procedure involved going through Clean Water Trust, and for this amount of money, it is not worth the time and effort. Keep in mind the first project, the engineering design phase was over $10 million. The second project, the ultraviolet disinfectant, was a $2.6 million project.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Mr. Tattelbaum, will you move this for us?
Move that the meeting accept this article.
And do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
Recommend 5-0.
And Select Board, please.
5-0 recommended.
Thank you. Any discussion on Special Town Meeting Article 3? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Special Town Meeting Article 3, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Special Town Meeting Article 3 passes at 10:21. Special Town Meeting Article 4, appropriation for assessing cyclical reinspection program. Mr. Barnes.
The state mandates that every 10 years, the town of Dartmouth do what's called a cyclical reinspection. Basically what that means is you go out to the properties, you measure the external dimensions, and you also list the contents inside. If a resident does not want to provide that information, they have that right, and the assessors cannot go into the facility. But again, it is state mandated. It is best to do this through contractors like we've done in the past. If we don't do it ourselves, the state itself will do it for us and probably charge us double of what it would cost us. And I should note this also includes taking pictures of all the residencies. So one of the advantages will be that in the future you'll be able to see the photograph of the properties when you look at the assessor's record. I should also note in finding basically growth that has not been previously detected, it brings in more revenue for the town. 70% of our revenue is from the tax levy, from taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Mr. Tattelbaum, are you
Move the
moving?
meeting accept this article.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
Recommend 6-0.
Select Board recommendation.
Recommends 5-0.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Special Town Meeting Article 4? We're ready to vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Special Town Meeting Article 4 passes at 10:23. I would entertain a motion to dissolve our special town meeting. Thank you. Do I have a second? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please indicate by raising your hand. Special town meeting is dissolved at 10:24 a.m. Do I have a motion to reopen our annual town meeting, please? Thank you. Do I have a second? All in favor of reopening our annual town meeting, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed? Thank you. Our regular annual town meeting is back in session at 10:24 a.m. Article 13, Funding Sewer Department Enterprise Fund. Mr. Barnes.
This article will fund the Sewer Enterprise Fund in the amount of $5,588,817. That is a $42,373 increase from the year before, or 0.76%. I should note that in the warrant for 22, not 23, 23 numbers are fine. If you look under 22, where it is bolded in total, that number is unfortunately due to a transcription error, is not correct. It should be $5,546,444. All the numbers going into the total are correct. So again, we're going from $5,546,444 to $5,588,817 for a total increase of $42,373. The major reason for that increase is debt service. Again, much as we did some long-term for sewer, we also did it for water, we also did it for sewer. When you go long-term, you have to pay both principal and interest.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Mr. Tattlebaum.
Move the meeting accept this article.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
We recommend 6-0.
Thank you. And Select Board recommendation.
Recommends 5-0.
Okay. So you heard Mr. Barnes. All the numbers for fiscal year 2023 are correct. The total for 2022 is the typo, so it's $5,546,444. Okay, but all the numbers that lead up to that are also correct. Do we have any discussion on Article 13? Mr. Herron. Can you raise your hand because they can't, yeah, thanks. It's hard for the people with the microphone to know where I'm pointing if you don't keep your hand up.
John Herron, Precinct 8. I wonder if Mr. Barber has any other potential sewer projects in the future. The reason I ask is we have a potential to spend American Rescue Plan Act money of probably close to $800,000 for pickleboard courts. So would he have any better use for those funds?
Mr. Barber, do you have any sewer projects that are proposed?
We are working on sewer upgrades to the existing treatment facility, which we're looking to hopefully use the APRA funds. Any extensions, our facility right now is pretty, it's not at capacity, but it's close enough that we wouldn't want to extend any large extensions or collection areas. But we do have plans proposed to upgrade.
Thank you.
If that answers your question, Mr. Hanhan.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 13? Right there, please. A microphone. Could you please keep your hand up? Because they don't, yeah, thanks. They're not sure where they're going.
I'm Karen MacArthur from Precinct 7. I'll repeat the gentleman's question. I think he was looking at Article 13 when he asked it about Article 12. But the overhead line has decreased by $42,000. And I'm wondering, has there been a decrease in staffing, or what would the reason for that be?
I see. Mr. Barnes.
Again, it's largely based on health care and pension. Without looking at it specifically, I believe that there was a decrease in health care and pension. Part of that's due to the staffing issues. As you know, it's been extremely difficult to fill positions. When you have unfilled positions, you do not charge for health care and pension.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Anything else on Article 13? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 13, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 13 passes at 10:29. Article 14, funding Dartmouth Cable TV Enterprise Fund. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, this will fund the DCTV in the amount of $531,876. That is a decrease of $63,572, or 10.68%. The major reason for that decrease is there was an internal promotion to the DCTV director, Peter over there, and when he was promoted, they did not replace the position that they went down one full-time equivalent for the other position. So they reduced their staffing, full-time staffing by one, thereby allowing for a decrease in the budget. Also, additionally, they did cut some expenses as well.
Thank you. Mr. Tattlebaum.
Move that the meeting accept this article.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation?
Recommend 6-0.
Select Board recommendation?
Recommends 5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 14? On the aisle in the back, please. Could you keep your hand, keep your hand up because she doesn't know where to go with the microphone because she doesn't see you. Thank you. Sorry.
Lori Ann
I
Miller,
can't see
Precinct
you.
9. I know that they were thanked for keeping town meeting going, but I want to thank DCTV for all the work they did in keeping all of the committees going. I know the planning board over the last several years did not miss one meeting. And thanks to DCTV, they helped us work it through it. So thank you very much for keeping all the board meetings going also.
Thank you. Thank you for highlighting that, Mrs. Miller. Any further discussion on Article 14? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 14 passes at 10:31. Article 15. Funding for Waterways Management Enterprise Fund. Mr. Barnes.
This will fund the Waterways Management Enterprise Fund in the amount of $376,236. That is an increase of $15,240 or 4.22%. One of the major reasons for the increase is they're raising or proposing to raise the wage rates for the seasonal waterway employees. They have not raised that rate in many years and are having trouble in recruiting people at the current rate. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Tattlebaum.
Move that the meeting accept this article.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
Recommend 6-0.
And Select Board, please.
Recommends 5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 15? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 15, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 15 passes at 10:33. Article 16. Personnel bylaw amendments, new positions, and salary adjustments. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, this is an annual article. This year includes salary adjustments for a new position, the public health nurse, which is not a new position, it's existing. It was part of COVID. The position was implemented. This formalizes the salary range, as well as a number of non-union positions that are all existing, and they were previously on a collective bargaining salary range. This formalizes it to a non-union salary range. As well as adding 2 part-time positions, library substitute and snowplow driver compensations.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Mr. Tattlebaum.
Move that the meeting accept this article.
Do I have a second? Finance Committee recommendation.
Recommend 6-0.
And Select Board, please.
Recommends 5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 16? Are we ready to vote? I'm sorry. I don't. Thank you. Could I please get a microphone there? Could you keep your hand, keep your hand up if you have the question, because they're having trouble seeing you. I had trouble seeing you.
Thank you. Shirley Zhang, person 5, about the public nurse position.
Yes.
It was said introduced during COVID.
Yes.
Now, what is the justification to keep this position where COVID has gone? And what's the exact job responsibility for this position? Thank you.
Sure. Mr. McGinnis, can you talk about the public health nurse
I think our
position?
health director could probably answer the
Okay.
detail on.
We're going to get you an answer here.
morning. Christopher Michaud, Director of Public Health, Town of Dartmouth. Would you mind repeating that question because it was a little hard to hear from behind?
Sure. So her question is, with COVID sort of dissipating, what's the justification for continuing to have the public health nurse? And what are their roles and responsibilities?
Thank you.
Sure.
So a public health nurse has always been a part of the health department operations. Up until last year, we provided a public health nurse through a really unique relationship where we provided a building to a vendor, and in exchange for the use of the building, they gave us a certain number of hours. Because of procurement requirements, the building would come up for bid every 3 years. We saw a high amount of turnover with that position, and also it became hard to really get the services that we need for public health nursing. One aspect of many aspects of what a health department does in Massachusetts deals with communicable diseases. So there's a whole set of regulations that define communicable and reportable diseases in Massachusetts. That's 105 CMR, I believe 300. Sorry if I get the exact 300 series wrong, but these regulations require a public health nurse to constantly manage reportable and communicable diseases. It could be something as commonplace as a foodborne illness. It could be something as rare as a disease that you might catch on the national news, like monkeypox that we're hearing about. So every day, reportable diseases come into health department through MAVEN, which is the Massachusetts Virtual Epidemiological Network. That is the means in which providers report the diseases to health departments. And without a public health nurse and a clinician to manage those diseases, we're going to fall behind our protection of public health. And these people that are impacted by these diseases will not get the advice and the resources that they need to manage those diseases to protect the public. Additionally, we're using the public health nurse to build education programs. Last year, before COVID really started to come back in full force, we got out to the Round Hill Beach to do some skin cancer awareness. We're hoping to further that this year, along with tick-borne diseases, getting involved with other diseases, emergency preparedness. So one of the things that really staged us for our response to COVID and having those large-scale clinics that were first of their kind in Massachusetts, we always were pushing the numbers higher, was our emergency preparedness. And that is an aspect that a lot of the communities rely on their public health nurses for, because the staff is just allocated to so many other aspects of what we do, whether it's septic systems, private drinking water supplies, animal issues, rabies. That's another aspect of what we do that falls, while it's a reportable disease under animal health, it's another disease that gets managed quite uniquely through our animal health inspectors. So that's really it in a nutshell.
So, Mr. Michaud, if I'm just summing it up, we had these services provided on a unique contracted basis. We were not happy with the amount of turnover. We think we're better served by hiring someone or having someone in our own employ, both because of the reporting requirements and also because of the programming and services we can provide to our community. Okay. Anything else on Article 16? Gentleman right here.
Jim Griffith, Precinct 2. Pardon my ignorance, but can someone tell me what an engagement coordinator is?
I'm going to see if I can get you an answer to that. An engagement coordinator.
Yes, that is a position at the Council on Aging, and our Council on Aging Director can come down and give detail on that.
Good morning, Amy DiPietro, Director of the Council on Aging. The engagement coordinator position is what has always been known as the outreach coordinator at the Dartmouth Council on Aging. Excuse me. The outreach coordinator, the engagement coordinator, becomes the liaison between outside agencies and the elder population in town. We do provide direct assistance with applications for fuel assistance. I'm sorry, for SNAP. So again, it's the outreach coordinator position.
Thank you very much. And I had a question here, I think. Do you still have a question? Yep, right there, please. Yep.
Margot Moore, Precinct 8. All I want to know is if we vote for the $33.75 an hour for a snowplow driver, on top of the money that we did for replacement snowplows, will you, the DPW please guarantee decent roads in the winter? Dartmouth is dangerous. It's the worst roads around here. I don't know why we give money for snowplows if we're not going to get plowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything else on Article 16? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 16 passes at 10:41. Article 17, appropriation to the Stabilization Fund. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, the town has a financial policy to have the equivalent of 10% of its general fund operating budget in stabilization. That previously was 7.5%. It was increased to 10% to reflect the fact there are some greater uncertainties. Keep in mind, even 10% is about the equivalent, a little more than one month worth of monies for the town in terms of the general fund. So we are continuing toward increasing the amount in the fund so that we can get to the 10% goal. Currently, we have $8,349,363.55 in the account. Again, this will add $1,100,000 to that amount. It will get us to 99.3% of the general fund operating budget for fiscal 2023. So we will have to do another article to get to the 10%, but we're doing this in a phase.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Mr. Tattlebaum.
Move that the meeting accept this article.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second, thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
Recommend 5-0.
Thank you. Select Board.
Recommends 5-0.
Any discussion on Article 17? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 17, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 17 passes at 10:43. Article 18. General Bylaws Amendments to Stormwater Bylaw. Mr. Barber.
Hello again. So now we're on the other side of water, so stormwater. The EPA has specific regulations that require us to have have a stormwater bylaw. The existing stormwater bylaw in town lists exemptions and referrals that do not meet the EPA regulations for MS4. So the revisions has been a group of town agencies, including town council, DPW, engineering, conservation, zoning, planning, health, to come up with the revisions to the bylaw that is shown.
Okay, and I just want to highlight that you have a handout about this that came in your packet. I know they're not colored because we're having, supply issues with colored paper. So do I have a motion on this? I think, Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving that for me?
Move the article be accepted.
And do I have a second? Okay, Finance Committee recommendation
Recommend 5-0.
and Select Board recommendation.
Recommends 5-0.
Okay, I understand I also have an amendment to this. Mr. Savastano, will you give us that amendment, please?
Yeah, the amendment would be after the language, and further by deleting the language of section 313-3B7 to insert the words "in its entirety."
Okay, so we're inserting the words "in its entirety" about the deletion of the language. Do I have a motion to make that amendment, Mr. Tattelbaum? Will you move that for me? Will you move that amendment for me?
Move the
Somebody
article
move-
be accepted.
Okay, and do I have a second on the amendment? Okay, so we're voting on the amendment to start, okay? So all in favor of inserting the words "in its entirety," please indicate, well, let's see, is there any discussion on that amendment? Okay, on the aisle. This is on the amendment.
Yes, John Nunes, Precinct 6. Just curious, where exactly in the article is that?
So can you better
You
describe?
know, per se,
Yep.
page, line, et cetera?
Yep.
Thank you.
It's on page 27, second paragraph. It is just to make it consistent with the remainder of the deletions where we use the words "in its entirety."
I'm sorry? 17, not 27. We don't have 27, yeah, 17. It's on page 17. It's on page 17. It's the top line on page 17. The top of the page begins with, "and further by deleting the language of section 313-3B, open parentheses, 7, close parentheses." Immediately after that, the amendment is to insert the words "in its entirety." Okay? So at the top of page 17, within that first sentence, immediately following the closed parentheses, we're asking to amend it so it says "in its entirety." Any further discussion on the amendment only at this point? Are we ready to vote on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, the amendment passes at 10:47. Okay, we're back on the main motion. So I have the main motion moved and seconded, and we've given you the Finance Committee and the Select Board recommendations. Is there any discussion on the main motion? Are we ready to vote on the main motion? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. Opposed, please indicate by raising your hands. Okay, the main motion passes at 10:48. Okay, we're now going back to Article 9. So, that's a separate packet that came in your warrant, if you want to follow along on that. Article 9, Schedule A, Fiscal Year 2023 Budget Appropriations. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. So this year, as part of the budget process, we created a State of the Town report. It's online and it's been posted. We've tried to get the word out, but it's available for viewing, and it basically walks everybody through the annual budget process. It's very insightful. I recommend everyone take a look at it. But part of that process is creating a budget policy statement annually before the budget season begins. The Select Board does that along with the Finance Committee. This year, the department heads were tasked to address the Select Board's goals. One of those goals was to evaluate current organization staffing roles and responsibilities and develop new staffing and organization plans to meet future needs of town government. One of the precursors of this is COVID. And in light of COVID, the town was able to realize they could do some things much more efficiently. They embraced the challenges, so we want to incorporate those changes moving into the future. Additionally, the select board asked to make these organization evaluations to promote succession planning, identify and develop quality internal staff, increase services to the public, and increase the staff focus on long-term planning, like the master plan, open space and recreation plan, as well as strategic planning. Toward that end, the departments have come forward and they've been vetted with a handful of changes, which I'll go through briefly here. The building department is looking for 2 part-time inspectors. They're 19-hour non-benefited positions. Much like last year when town meeting was presented with a full-time inspector position, these positions aren't funded unless fees that are taken in from permitting, from building permits, meet the demand and can cover the costs. Next is the Council on Aging staffing upgrades. This is promoting an existing position from a clerical position to an assistant Council on Aging director position. One of the things we've looked at, and you've heard reference here earlier, there are a number of municipal job openings out there. This is not specific to Dartmouth, this is statewide. By reference, if you go, there's a main site for municipal jobs through the Mass Municipal Association. Generally, that's where most municipal positions are filled. Prior to COVID, if you had gone to that site, you'd probably see 50 to 75 positions, and that was a lot of positions advertised. Currently, they have almost 400 positions advertised in openings in the state. So one thing you heard us mention was succession planning, and there's not a lot of assistance out there. So department heads from different communities, when there's an opening, they evaluate the community based on salary and benefits, and those are the primary decision makers. But there's also other quality of life issues that they hope to address. But we're trying to address that internally and prepare for the future by creating some assistant positions, not new positions, but developing quality internal staff that have shown the capability to take that step forward. So toward that end, we're creating the assistant COA director position, as well as formalizing the engagement coordinator position you heard Amy talk about earlier. Previously, this was a grant-funded position. I'll only be brief with this, but the Council on Aging, many people think of it as a recreation facility for the elderly. It is not. It is, over the years, it has turned more into a social service agency. They provide a lot of service to our elders, needed services that are vital. This position helps to provide those services. Additionally, Finance Department has some staffing changes. This is the only new position that is being created. It's a payroll administrator position. The finance office is responsible for processing payroll for the entire town, including the schools, which is a number of employees. But also the existing payroll administrator is another position where over the years, this person has taken on more workload, helped implement some of our Munis modules. You've heard Munis mentioned many times as part of our financial software package. This package is all-encompassing. It does a lot. It basically runs all the finances for the town. It incorporates every department. And there's a number of modules that we haven't been able to implement because we haven't had the staffing to kind of spearhead that effort. So we're promoting the payroll administrator position to a finance system analyst / payroll administrator. So we'll have multiple employees who are capable of running the payroll process on a weekly basis, but we'll also be implementing a number of Munis modules to help achieve some efficiencies internally and make things much more efficient for the staff so they can focus on more servicing the public. Next is planning and community development. There's an existing planning aid position. It is currently vacant. You heard one of the goals is to focus on master plan, strategic planning, and implementing the open space plan. Creating an assistant planning director would allow the planning director to focus on more high-level projects, and the planning director can focus on servicing the public, developers, and ushering developers through the process to get many of the projects moved through the process. So additionally, we have the zoning board clerical position, which we are promoting to an office administrator. Right now, they are tasked with just providing service to the zoning board of appeals. The new position would provide similar service to the Conservation Office and the Historic Commission, which historically, no pun intended, has not had any staff support. So this would provide that support, as well as providing support to the planning office. So, and then lastly, in the select board office, we were looking to upgrade the director of development position to an assistant town administrator position. This is another example of taking an employee that's working above and beyond and doing more, recognizing that and asking them to do even more. And it also helps with succession planning. This is a high-level position. It's important to have a succession plan in place. Not that the assistant takes over the role if there's a vacancy, but you need that stability in government to help usher through the process during that vacancy. So a number of, and next, after that, those are the staffing changes, but our MIS department is looking for a $50,000 increase for maintenance agreement increases. That is our Munis software I spoke about earlier, but also our online services application view permit. But we have a number of other software maintenance agreements that those increases go up annually, so we're trying to absorb those costs. Lastly, the Dartmouth schools have a 4.78% increase in their budget, and they've created 3 new positions. So all of these changes have been incorporated into the balanced budget that's been presented today. It sets the town up for the future by providing some stability, moving forward, focusing on larger long-term projects, but also providing better service to the public. So, and that can all be seen in the State of the Town report.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGinnis. Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving this for us?
I'm ready.
Thank you, and do I have a second? Okay, Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends 4-3.
And Select Board recommendation.
5-0.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is what I've done typically in the past. So I'm looking, just to be clear, so we're all quite literally on the same page. I'm looking at this packet that says Article 9, Town of Dartmouth Fiscal Year 2023 Budget, okay? If you flip, if you open up that packet, it's where the numbered pages begin. So it's a couple pages in, numbered pages begin. At the top right-hand corner, it says 1 of 13. I am looking at the rightmost column, which is entitled Fiscal Year 2023 Finance Committee Recommendation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read down the totals on the left-hand column, leftmost column of the page. I'm only reading the totals. If you have a question about any of the items contained within those totals, what I'm going to ask you to do is call out hold. After we've gone through the budget, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get your questions answered so that you feel comfortable voting on this budget, okay? So let's get started. Town meeting, $1,900. Town moderator, 0. Select board town administrator, $544,258. Finance committee, $510,000. Town accountant. Did someone yell hold on finance committee? Yes, okay. A hold there. Town accountant, $154,714. Next page. Assessors, $317,847. Director of Budget and Finance Treasurer, $532,405. Town Collector, $393,461. Legal, $477,410. Personnel, $145,788. Next page. Management Information Systems, $560,455. Hold. Town Clerk, $259,149. Election and Registration, $123,025. Hold. Conservation Commission, $151,136. Planning Board, $170,230. I'm sorry, $203,000. So let me say that again. Planning Board, $170,203. Next page, we're on page 4. Board of Appeals, $65,088. Hold. Community Development Department, 0. Facilities and vehicle maintenance, town hall, and other buildings, $447,273. Vacant building maintenance, 0. Solar net metering credits, $135,000. Communications, $76,000. Next page. Police Department, $8,435,127. Huh. A lot to talk about there. Ambulance contract is 0. Building Department, $544,874. Sealer of weights and measures, $11,515. Emergency, next page. Emergency Management Agency, $17,700. Animal Control, $173,252. Natural Resources, $26,472. Next page. Schools, $49,425,557. Greater New Bedford Vocational Regional Technical High School, $5,844,048. Bristol County Agricultural High School, $157,590. Next page. Department of Public Works salaries, $2,984,943. Department of Public Works expenses, $864,971. Street, hold. Street lights, $65,000. Traffic lights, $8,000. Regional Refuse Management District assessment, 0. Next page. Board of Health, $404,125. Council on Aging, $411,912. Youth Commission, $78,240. Veterans Department, $635,441. Next page. Libraries, $1,295,721. Recreation Department, 0. Park Commission, $464,558. Historical Commission, $250. Next page. Debt service, total $1,887,000. Interest on debt, total $1,516,885. Next, are you calling a hold? I'm like, did they call a hold? I need to hear you, otherwise I'm gonna just keep moving along here. I think so. Pensions and retirement, $6,063,785. Workman's compensation, $355,000. Unemployment compensation, $78,500. Health and life insurance, $7,659,426. Hold there. Okay. Medicare payroll tax, $800,000. Police medical disability, $225,000. Other employee benefits, $186,587. Next page. Property and liability insurance, $1,127,628. For a grand total of $96,814,219. Okay, let's go back and clear the holds. So the first hold I see is for the Finance Committee. Who called that out? So could I get a microphone here, please?
Robert Almy, Precinct 9. I noticed in the minority opinion there is concern stated about the long-term viability of the balance between revenues and expenditures in this town. I also note that several boards and commissions have had discussions of something called cost of services. And my question then is, I noticed that there's a $510,000 request for something called a reserve fund. Could somebody please explain how that relates to the stabilization fund and why that's necessary? Thank you.
Sure, Mr. Barnes, do you want to take that for us? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Barnes.
So the reserve fund is meant to cover extraordinary and unanticipated expenditures within the, typically within the operating budget. It is budgeted each year. At the end of the year, that money disappears and must be rebudgeted again. It is something that the Finance Committee throughout the year can vote to take those monies and spend them toward deficits within various accounts. The Stabilization Fund, in order to take money from that, would require a town meeting vote. So, for example, you might have a need for a computer or something that wasn't anticipated. This allows the Finance Committee to vote for that during the year. And the policy is to retain about 0.5% of the operating budget toward the reserve fund. In recent years, the Finance Committee has spent very little of this money. Part of it is they favor line item transfers. You're able to, in May and June, do what's called a line item transfer. It takes a vote of both the Finance Committee and the Select Board. We, for example, this morning just voted for 3 of those items.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Anything else on Finance Committee? Okay, so I'm clearing that hold. Our next hold is on management information systems. Who called that hold, please? So could I have a computer, microphone, not a computer, right here, please?
Courtney Cohen, Precinct 8. I'm not sure how much it affects the bottom line number at the end, but just to note, there is potentially a Scribner's error, column 4, FY23 department request. So I just think it's a carryover. Under computer radio tech salary, it jumps from 79,115 to 220.
Okay. So what I'm understanding then when I read this, Mr. Barnes, and correct me if I'm wrong, or...
Do you see that?
Yep, is that was the department's request, but what we are moving forward with for the budget is the right-hand column.
Yes, that is not an error. The MIS director requested 2 additional positions, which were not voted to be recommended.
Okay, so that, okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Any other questions on that section of the budget? Okay, I'm clearing that hold. The next hold I recorded was on election and registration. Who called that, please? In the back, please.
Can someone
Can you give
offer-
your name and precinct,
I'm sorry.
please? Thanks.
Susan Gaducci, Precinct 9. Can someone give a definition of off-duty pay?
Sure.
The state law requires that we have a duty officer at every precinct during every election. So that is what funds our detail officers. And so technically they're off-duty police officers, but they are who are securing our elections, and that's what those funds are used for.
Thank you. Anything else with regard to this section of the budget? Okay, I'm moving forward to clear that hold. The next hold I have is on page 4 for Board of Appeals. Who called that hold, please? In the back, on this side, please.
Gloria Bancroft, Precinct 1. Clerical salaries, 2 points. One is a question for clarification. This position is the one that we heard earlier will now be helping other departments, correct?
Correct.
So at one time, if we look at fiscal year 2020, that position actually needed assistance, and therefore a stipend was given to the Director of Development at the time to assist because of the workload and also being new. Over time, it looks like that assistance is no longer needed. So I just want to verify that that's the case.
Yeah, so back in FY '20, that support was divided, that was part of the Director of Development position. So that got wrapped, in FY '21, that got wrapped into the salary of the Director of Development, and that continues to be the case with the new position. The upgraded position would still provide that support to the zoning board.
I'm sorry, so the new position, meaning clerical, will still provide?
The clerical, there were a number of functions back in FY '20 that aren't done anymore. You've heard us mention the online services. A lot of the functionality is online, so it's eliminated some of the administrative and the consultant support work. The Director of Development currently provides that support, and that is wrapped into the salary, so that's why you don't see it in subsequent years. We're talking about promoting the Director of Development position to the Assistant Town Administrator position. It would still be responsible for providing that support to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, so my other point was in regards to the minority report that we received, what was concerning to me was that the Finance Committee was not made aware of stipends, and I was hoping that going forward we can, there can be some further discussion about transparency and that issue, because having sat on that committee, I recall stipends were brought to our attention, such as in this case, we saw the line item for $7,000 that came from the Director of Development. Conservation also used to receive a stipend. So I was just most concerned about that minority report comment and hoping that stipends would always be discussed in Finance Committee discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can just add that historically stipends, we try to be transparent with those. We have, currently on the municipal side, we have the GIS stipend that's been historically in place for a great number of years. That was with one person. Subsequent to that person leaving, we divided it between two people. In case people don't know what GIS is, it's mapping software that's associated with databases that allows you to see location information on a map. So when you go to the assessor's office, that's part of the assessing database. The police department has a similar database, so as well as our permitting and licensing database. So that is how that stipend is distributed. The emergency management officer gets a small stipend. And those are the permanent stipends. And sometimes we do temporary stipends, which we have, which is where the confusion came on this year. Those are expected to be temporary. We try to be, as nimble as possible with town government. A lot of decision needs to be made at town meeting. We want to progress as soon as possible, so we implement. We have two stipends that we've implemented for a total of $20,000, with the assumption that that's going to change at town meeting if the budget's approved. So there was an oversight on my part with the select board where it was approved in executive session. I was under the understanding that's where it needs to be approved. It needs to be approved in open session too, so we've corrected that. And moving forward, our goal is to be transparent. I think you can see that with the budget presentation tonight and the state of the town report. So your concerns are noted, Gloria. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the Board of Appeals budget before I clear that hold? I have a question on the aisle there.
Linda De Silva, Precinct 7. I just wanted you to explain the $15,000
Would you hold on,
increase.
Ms. De Silva, until this announcement goes, because I'm having trouble hearing you. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I was just questioning the $15,000 increase on personal services under Board of Appeals.
Sure.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, that new position provides support to a number of different departments. As part of our reclassification and compensation plan, that position would be graded at a higher scale. This puts that new position on that new grade and compensates appropriately.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this part of our budget? Okay, I'm going to clear this hold. Okay, my next hold that I have is for Community Development Department. Who called that hold, please? I did. Can I get you the microphone? Thank you.
I'm not going to walk around, Melissa.
Just trying to get it over so we don't take out the candy.
Janine Simmons, Precinct 8, but I'm actually asking as a Finance Committee member on this. only because we had a lengthy discussion on this salary at 70,000. That's where it began. But it doesn't seem to include the reclassification amount, nor does it include the $10,000 stipend that was issued last fall. So the statement that we saw in the Finance Committee meeting showed us that number clearly, but it's not here, and I'm curious why.
So you're saying in the fiscal year 2020 budget, it doesn't reflect?
2022.
2022, I'm sorry.
That 70,000 I don't believe is accurate because it doesn't show reclassification or the $10,000 stipend.
Let me see if I can get that answered for you.
I can. So if you look back in FY20, the salary was $93,700 plus the $7,000 consultant, which was $100,000. So we replaced that position with a $70,000 position in FY21. Subsequent to that, the position, as I mentioned earlier, we recognize staff that are doing more and taking on more responsibility. That was the purpose of that $10,000 stipend. All of that has been rolled into now the new Assistant Town Administrator position, which is listed under the Select Board Town Administrator budget.
I think, Mr. McGinnis, is the $10,000 stipend that was associated with that position, is that part of the 70 or is it listed elsewhere?
The stipends go away. They're incorporated into the new salary. So one is for the Finance Analyst Payroll Administrator. That was a $10,000 stipend, but that has been incorporated into the new salary for that position. The same with the Assistant Town Administrator position. There's no stipends. The salary that's shown in the Schedule A here under the Town Administrator's budget is what the salary would be. There's no stipends.
Right, but in 2022, not the new one, would the stipend, was there a $10,000 stipend in 2022? Or was that part of the 70?
Yes, during 2022, so it wasn't budgeted as part of 2022.
Okay, and that was the budgeted revised.
Correct.
Got it. So because that's the budgeted revised, it's not in the budget. It's not the actual, that column. Anything else with this line item? Okay, I'm clearing that hold. Next page, Police Department. Who called that hold, please? Right here, please. Could I get a microphone and then in back?
Elizabeth DiPaolo, Precinct 2. I was just curious to inquire if any of the line items in public safety have included additional revenue to support consistent and permanent additional public safety at our Dartmouth public schools.
So do I have someone here who can speak to either the chief? Thank you. Could you come on down, please?
Good morning, Brian Levesque, Chief of Police. So these budgets are, they're put together early in the year, normally January. I know what you're referring to was a recent incident in Texas. So that wasn't really on our minds when the budget was produced, but just to give everyone an overview of what we currently have in place and what we've done since then. Essentially, we've had a long-standing school resource officer at the high school, being a full-time officer assigned to that building. The same thing at the middle school. Since what happened in Texas, we've been in contact with the school department, in close communication with them, to see what additional measures we can take to keep everyone safe and make everyone feel better about the situation. We've had working police officers as available, stationed at the schools. You may see them in the mornings and in the afternoons, basically during the transition period when children are being dropped off or picked up from school. In addition to that, we had a additionally trained officer, trained as a school resource officer. Her position was utilized previously to fill in the absence of either the high school or the middle school officer being absent. Since that time, she's been reassigned to basically go throughout the elementary schools throughout the day, visit different schools at different times to enhance safety. And going forward into the new school year, so these are temporary measures that have been put in place, additional measures on top of what we were already doing to get us to the end of this year. We'll continue discussions with the school department to see which programs will continue, which additional changes will be made going into the next school year. I do want everyone to understand that school safety is a complex problem. It's probably not going away anytime soon, unfortunately. And I just don't want to get too focused on a single solution, which would be school resource officers. I think they're a great solution to that problem. They're part of the solution. They're not the solution. These buildings are large. To say that having one officer in a building of this size is going to be sufficient security, I don't believe that. I don't think any of you do either. We need to look at physical security, electronic security, training, and our contribution, the school resource officer, having the patrol officers visible, is a small part of that issue. But we do take it seriously, and like I said, we will be talking with the school department on ways to enhance school safety.
Thank you. Any other questions with regard to this? I have a couple questions here, please. So,
Thomas Vieira, Precinct 7. I was wondering if you could outline what the professional other category involves.
Chief, could you tell us about that?
Yes. The professional other category is one of the salary components of our budget. It includes various professional level positions in the department, including our crime analyst and my assistant.
Thank you. Another question? Right behind the person that just spoke, we have another question, please.
Hi, I'm Nicole Davignon, Precinct 9. I was just curious if there's any training for mental health crisis and other awareness for police in this town, and if that's incorporated into the budget.
Sure. So each year, officers attend in-service, which is a mandated training for all officers in the Commonwealth. They've incorporated various components of that training that you've mentioned, the mental health training. That's obviously become a big concern with police officers, and they are receiving that training as part of their annual in-service.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, you had a question?
Thank you. Sean McDonald, Precinct 4. I know all the questions regarding the safety, but at this point in time, I would want to congratulate the Dartmouth Police Department on reaching their 100 years, and to remind everybody that the Policeman's Ball is actually returning for the first time in several years, and some of you used to go to there when it was Lincoln Park, so please support our police department and their Policeman's Ball in October. Thank you.
Thank you. On the aisle there, please. Yep.
John Nunes, Precinct 6, and this is for the chief. I also have the one for the DPW, but my question is under the expenses with gas and diesel going through the roof, are these budgets going to be set enough to take care of that? I realize we don't pay some of the taxes, that the government doesn't pay taxes on the fuel type of deal like we pay at stations, but is the budget going to be sufficient, or are you going to be going to FinCom or coming back to town meeting in October?
So with the gasoline prices, I mean, I don't think any of us really know for sure where that's heading, if these prices are going to be sustained, if they're going to go higher or lower. Very hard to forecast what's going to happen over time with those prices of fuel. And you're correct, we purchase gasoline through a contract in bulk, so our price is a bit less than what you see at the pump. In addition to that, years ago, we transitioned our fleet we began the transition to hybrid vehicles. Since that time, we've realized quite a savings in fuel usage on the hybrid vehicles. The Ford police hybrid vehicles that we utilize, the greatest savings come from actually when they're idling, essentially when the officers are either at a scene with the emergency lights running, sitting roadside, monitoring traffic, the various duties. Our cars idle quite a bit, and that's where the hybrids really, the savings really comes into play. The cars are able to run off the battery completely for a bit of time before they need to start the engine up briefly to recharge the batteries, And when I say run the car, it runs the emergency lighting, it runs the HVAC, it essentially runs everything that the officer needs in the vehicle. Being hybrids, they really don't drive on the electric motor, they use the gas engine to drive around. So I am hoping that to see the gas prices come down. This year, with the additional vehicles we're gonna offer, be purchasing, our entire patrol fleet, frontline cars will be hybrid vehicles. But if the prices stay at this level or go higher, it is gonna cause an issue with our gasoline budget, and we will take steps to try to minimize that as we track it throughout the year. But I can't guarantee that it won't be an issue going forward.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions here. On the aisle there first, please.
Peter Howland, Precinct 1. Good morning, Chief. I just wanted to double check. I know when the police station, the construction was kind of finished with all of that, it was on the verge of COVID and everything beginning. And I know one of the things that we were excited about was the fact that we had a 60-person training room that we were going to be able to utilize to train outside sources and kind of bill for that. Have we been able to utilize that conference room in that way? Have we been able to kind of bring money in on those trainings for that?
So regarding the training room, yes, during COVID, it was shut down. It seats, it's closer to 50. You could probably fit 60 in there, but it would get a little tight. So the way we're actually utilizing that room, and we've had several large-scale training events in that room as well as meetings. The way you utilize it, though, is not so much by bringing in revenue. What happens generally is if we bring an outside instructor in and we provide the venue for them, they will then provide us with a certain number of seats depending on how big the class is that we don't need to pay for. So if you have a week-long training and it might be $400 or $500 per seat, if we're able to bring in maybe 40, 50 people to that class, we could get 3, 4, 5 seats that they would comp us. So that's kind of the way that room benefits us financially.
Thank you. Did I have some questions in here? So right here, please.
Jim Griffith, Precinct 2. In the recent past, there have been a number of community policing issues, one of which the Dartmouth Democratic Town Committee initiated a series of meetings with community groups, et cetera, one of which included the chief and his senior officers. We had a meeting, we had a public meeting, and at that time, we're looking at defund the police and school safety and a series of issues like that. And I just want to mention that the chief and his staff and the facility that we had a meeting in were completely outstanding. We met with psychologists, we met with a number of people, and they were forthright and open, and I very much appreciate it, and the group that we worked with, and we issued a report. It was very satisfactory, and I thank the chief and his staff very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, the gentleman, a couple rows back.
Wynn Willard, Precinct 9. While on the subject of police cruisers, can you explain to us the theory behind all black cruisers versus black and white, blue and white? There's obviously a trend.
Okay, so we're straying a little again, right? Because we're on the budget. If you can give me a quick response, and then we're going to move along here.
Sure. There's various colors of police cruisers. Over the years, when I started, they were basically all white with some colorful striping on the side. They went back to the traditional black and white, and now they're all black. So, essentially, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. By buying them all black, they don't have to paint part of it white. So it's a little easier, I guess, and you're getting a factory paint job versus having to be painted at the shop when they're conditioning them. But there's no real reason they need to be black, per se. I mean, you drive around, you see police cars of all different colors in different towns. They've been all black now for probably at least 10 years. So it does take a while to transition a fleet, obviously, because we keep our cars for a number of years. So if we were to change colors, generally we don't repaint the cars we have, and it takes a good 4 or 5 years at least before most of the cars are the same color again. So I'm really not rushing into changing the color personally.
Okay, anything else on this hold? Gentleman right there. Person right there.
Bob Boulay, Precinct 9. I was wondering what your position was, Chief, on having school personnel being armed.
We're not, that's way, way out of bounds. So we're sticking to the budget. If you have a budget question, I'll take it. If it's not related to the budget, we're going to clear this hold. This is not the forum for it. You're welcome to call the police chief at a different, at his office. I'm sure he can be happy to talk with you then. Do we have any other questions with regard to the budget? We're sticking to the budget. Okay, right here. Did one of you raise your hand over there? Okay. So can you help this gentleman get a microphone?
Rai Magai, Present 6. Just a question from the police department. Is that okay?
If it's related to the budget, it is.
Budget or
Yes.
the police?
Budget of the police.
Okay, fine. Do you have any training for the students how to deal with the emergency, like mock training for them so they know a little bit where to go, what to do in case of the emergency? Thank you.
Yes, in the past, and we continue to offer it to the schools, it's ALICE training. There's various, it goes by various names, but essentially we do train with the schools. We also train our officers, and we work closely with the fire department in town and the emergency, the EMTs essentially, to have that combined response if there were to be a major incident at the school. So we work with the schools and all the other emergency services in town for training and coordination.
Okay, anything else with regard to this budget? Right there. In the back, the woman with her hand up, please.
Hi, Jeannie Tripp, Precinct 7. My question is, in this budget, could you please tell me the number of full-time officers we have and the size of the fleet of vehicles we have at the current time within this budget? Thank you.
So that budget that you're looking at, I'll just address the fleet first. It's for the repair and maintenance of the fleet itself. It's not actually to purchase vehicles for the fleet. That's part of the CIP portion of the budget. I can give you some, off the top of my head, some quick numbers. As far as like frontline patrol vehicles, there's approximately 15 of those, an additional 3 supervisors' vehicles. Detectives have approximately 8 vehicles assigned to them. We have support services staff, including our traffic unit, is another 4 vehicles. We have at least 3 administrative vehicles in the department. So that takes care of, I think, most of the vehicle question. What was the other part of your question?
How many full-time officers do you have, please?
So the budget's based on 74 full-time police officers, and you know, we're constantly hiring. We're hiring people each year to maintain that number, because obviously we have officers who are retiring every year as well. So we're not always at 74, but that's what we are budgeted for.
So we're ready to clear the hold on this one? Fantastic. Moving on. My next hold is on page 7 for Dartmouth Public Schools. Who called that hold, please? Can I have a microphone there, please?
Good morning, Jamie Jackworth, Precinct 5. It's a large budget. It would be great to hear a little bit more from the schools about specifically what's going on with those.
I believe there's also a handout here, but maybe our school superintendent can do a very brief overview. You had a handout in your packet. I believe it was actually color ink on it that will help you identify it.
Okay. Bonnie Gifford, Superintendent of Schools, and Mr. Kiley, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. So he can give a brief overview, breakdown of our those categories.
a few of the key things that have made up the change in our budget for this year. Our instruction category is up about 5.4% from the prior year. Our administration category is down 8.9%. Maintenance and utilities up 3.2%. Other services, so that includes things like transportation, athletics, nursing services, are up 2.9%. And tuitions, which is students who we're unable to serve in-house, who we have to send to out-of-district schools, are up 4.7%. So what is driving those particular things? We have added a teacher at the Quinn School. We had a class size issue that we needed to address, and so we've incorporated that into the budget. We have a retirement in our administration of the Director of Teaching and Learning, and we, a year prior, had not replaced the Assistant Superintendent position. So what we are doing now is we are going to have, for next year, hopefully, have 2 Director of Teaching and Learning positions, one for the secondary level, so for middle and high school, and one for the elementary level. This better helps us focus on our curriculum and our instructional needs of kids at those levels. So we're focused on that. We also have one more additional position for a registered behavior technician, which helps provide special needs services to kids who struggle with behavioral issues. So those are the 3 things that have sort of driven our budget this year.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on the school budget? On the aisle, Mrs. Miller.
It's not necessarily Lori Ann Miller, Precinct 9. It's not necessarily a question on the budget, but I have a question that maybe can be answered at the October town meeting. I noticed in the ARP that they're recommending over $1 million to do a survey or an engineering study for a rec building. Our schools, the youngest one is 20 years old. I would like to see for the next town meeting a list of all our schools and how old they are, and a plan in place, or the beginning of a plan in place to replace them, because that is coming down the pike and it is coming very fast. And it has nothing to do with the population of students in this town. It has to do with the qualities of the schools and updating so that we can educate our kids for the year 2025 and 2050.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Did I have another question before we clear this hold? In the middle here, please.
Shirley Zhang, Person 5. On this colorful flyer, the title says financial year 23, but then the category, both of them list as a financial 2022 budget. On the top, the table, is list the financial 22 and the financial 21.
I think there's a typo. Is that correct, Mrs. Kiley? Yeah, I think there's a typo. So the right-hand column would be 2023. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. Now, then I'm comparing the number with the number right here. I cannot find the matching of the numbers.
Madam Moderator?
Yes, please.
I can explain that. So our budget does not include the Medicaid line in the operating budget. So if you'll notice, that number is $40-some thousand. I don't have it in front of me, but that is not incorporated in our budget. Our operating budget is the rest of those numbers. So transportation, net metering, and the operating budget.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. So looking at the change of the budget, the administration increased by 12.7%. In classroom staff increased 5.5. Just from the conventional thinking, the increase of the administration seems like overweighted in classroom staff. do we have numbers of student numbers which goes to our school in the past 2 years and the present year? Thank you.
Mr. Kiley?
So the administration line makes up, is the primary increase in the administration line is the Director of Teaching and Learning positions, which I explained. So if you'll notice, there's 2 administrative lines, and we do it this way for a reason. The Department of Ed asks us to report our expenses in certain ways, and they classify certain positions as instruction administration and as overall administration. So if you'll notice, there's a decrease in the overall administration line, and that is essentially our central office administrative function, district-wide administrative positions. The increase in the instruction administration line is partially offset by that decrease in the overall administration line. But then it is also increased, that instruction administration line, by that additional position for the Director of Teaching and Learning. So there's really 2 factors that make up the change in instruction administration. To summarize, one is the decrease in the overall administration line, and the other is an increase in an additional position. I hope that helps explain it.
Do you have one further question?
Student numbers.
Excuse me?
Student numbers.
What does that mean?
Total numbers of students in the past year and this year.
Do you have a, yes, thank you.
We're actually projecting to be down 0.2%. So not much, a very small change. We have about 3,400 students, and we're going to be slightly down next year.
I'm sorry, do you have a follow-up question?
Special education expense. So we have special education service, which included in the instruction, and we also have tuition, which is not included. So these 2 add up together is 7.5% of the overall budget. So the question is, how many students are involved in the special education in percentage-wise? Thank you.
Thank you.
So the total out-of-district numbers are approximately 40 students. So that is what represents that tuition line. Now the special ed services line serves all of our students who we serve in-house. So the kids that we are fortunate to be able to serve in-house, their services such as therapies, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and other services are included in that SPED services line. We have hundreds of students who, participate and are provided services, several hundred students in that category.
Thank you. Anything else for this line item of our budget? In the back, please.
Hi, Jeannie Tripp, Precinct 7. I've been attending a lot of the school committee meetings, and when I look at the budget with the pie chart, my question is, Department of Education specifies how you write up the budget to submit to Massachusetts Board of Education, whatever. I'm curious, where do the ESSER funds run in collaboration with the budget? And my concern is more for the younger students in town. A lot of the teenagers struggled with home learning and so forth throughout the pandemic. Now that the kids are back in the classroom, it was the younger kids that were much more isolated than the teens. I mean, they were all on their phones, and they still, to some extent, had their social media going. But for the smaller kids, I'm curious, what are we going to do to get them all back sort of up to the same levels? I know the teachers are amazing and the staff at the schools are amazing. It's just, how are we finding those kids?
With regard to the budget, what is the question?
Do we have money going from ESSER or this budget specific to that? Because the pie chart is pretty, but it doesn't really break it up for me.
Okay.
Sorry.
So let me get that question answered for you, please.
What I can tell you is that we've, over the last couple of years, have used our ESSER funds to increase staffing as far as social emotional help, social workers, even our nursing department, which we were in desperate need of help with that. And of course, they tend to students' needs as well. So we have used those funds to support students' mental health issues. It's ongoing, so we will continue to use those funds for the next couple of years and to keep that staff on board.
Thank you. Anything else with regard to, we have another question here, please.
Thomas Vieira, Precinct 7. I was looking at the sped services decrease in the budget, and it's my understanding that this district struggles to maintain or to retain sped staff, and I was wondering what the reasoning was behind decreasing the budget if we are getting outbid by other districts.
We actually retain a lot of our staff, so I'm not sure what you're referring to, but the decrease in the budget could be tuition costs, et cetera. Students may be aging out, or another placement that costs a different amount of money. So we do have a number of in-house programs as well that supports, as Mr. Kiley said, some of the students that require special services, but we are able to keep in-house.
Okay.
So,
Anything else with this line item? We're ready to clear this hold? Okay, moving on. Our next hold that I have, thank you very much. Next hold that I have is with regard to Board of Health. Do we have a question with regard to the Board of Health? Yes. Could I have a microphone down here, please?
Mary Lou Fries, Precinct 5. There's a 0 on the clerical line here. I don't know that that is included in some of those departments that oversee other departments. I had not heard that. I'm concerned that the skilled staff, the inspectors, the director, the nurse, will be answering phones and doing reception.
Okay, let me see if I can get you an answer to that. Mr. Michaud or Mr. McGinnis? Okay.
I can provide an answer to that. So you've heard me mention before, part of our online permitting and licensing services provides a lot of the information people used to call and come into for. So we've been able to eliminate a clerical position and fund an inspector position. We feel that provides better service to the public, more skills and responsibility involved with the position, and also provides the same clerical support. So they are in the office providing some clerical support, but most of that is provided online.
Anything else with regard to this line item? Okay, I'm clearing that hold. I inadvertently missed a hold on page 8, Department of Public Works. Mr. Nunes, I believe. Get a microphone there, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. John Nunes, Precinct 6. Again, it was the same question that I asked the police chief with the price of diesel and gasoline. You know, is there going to be enough money there, or again, are we going back to FinCom for a reserve fund and or coming back in October to augment it?
That's definitely a tough question. So, you know, our budgets were prepared prior to this increase that we're seeing, and as the chief said, we can't forecast whether this is going to keep increasing, plateau, or drop in price. And unfortunately, we don't have hybrid solid waste and recycling vehicles, but it might be a way of the future. So we'll be keeping an eye on the fuel consumption, and hopefully it doesn't affect our bottom line, but we will be keeping an eye on it, and if we have to come before for October, we'll put it in writing.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Anything else with regard to DPW? Okay, I'm clearing that hold. Now I'm moving forward to, I believe the next hold is interest, is on interest on debt. Did somebody call that hold? Mr. Govin.
I'm sorry, I got laryngitis, so I'm going to give it my best shot. I thought it's important, when you look at the whole budget, that the debt and interest has come down dramatically. And when you look at the total budget for the year, it's 2.33. But if you take out the debt service and payments that have dropped dramatically, the actual budgeted expenses are up 4.3%. And with annual revenue going up 3.3%, there's going to be an issue. So I just like Greg Bonds probably explain it a little bit better, that whole debt and interest, the big decrease in that.
So your question is for Mr. Barnes to talk about the interest on debt. Mr. Barnes?
Yes, you see a significant decrease in debt service. That is due to one item, which is the high school. The high school debt as of this year is paid off. So what you're seeing is the debt service without the high school debt. I want to emphasize that debt was paid through a state grant through Mass School Building and a debt exclusion. We will continue to receive the monies for the grant, which is $1.75 million for one more year. That will go to local receipts. After that, it will completely disappear from our budget.
Thank you. Are we clearing? All set? Thank you. Anybody else on that line item? Okay, we're going to clear that hold. I think our final hold is for health and life insurance. Who called that hold, please? Anybody? Hold on health and life insurance. In the back there, please. Yep, that gentleman.
Just a question. With the rising cost of health insurance, do the town employees contribute anything towards their coverage, medical coverage?
I think
they contribute quite a bit.
I think they'd be happy to answer that question. Yes, there's two different plans. Currently, the distribution of the health insurance is 54% from the town pays and 46% the employees pay. There's a high deductible plan. Many of you may be familiar with that. Contribution rate is 60-40 on the town side.
Do we have a question in the middle?
George Marcotte, Precinct 2. It's sort of a general question, maybe the town manager can ask, and it sort of has something to do with benefits. So in just about every department, there's professional salaries, clerical salaries, and there's this other salary. And when I think of salary, I think it's something that we have to pay benefits, sick time, et cetera. I mean, is that just sort of, if you could explain what other salaries are they part-time? Are they just hourly wages? We don't have to pay them sick time, et cetera. I understand that these departments probably need additional help at certain times, but it is a pretty big item if we added it all up collectively.
Yeah, you're correct. So generally, it's part-time positions or other positions that are not part of the full-time positions.
Okay. Anything else with regard to health and life insurance? Okay, I believe we have cleared all the holds for this budget. We've had a lot of discussion, so I'm assuming we're ready to vote. Okay. All in favor of Article 9 as printed in your warrant, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please indicate by raising your hand. Article 9 passes at 11:54. I would entertain a motion to dissolve. Do I have a second? All in favor of dissolving town meeting, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Town meeting is officially dissolved at 11:54. Thank you, everyone.